Well, hey friends, you made it. Thank you for listening to my podcast. You have arrived to season 3 of How People Grow. And I am super excited about this season, and I'm going to call it The Wisdom of the Body. And this is just going to be an introduction. And what I want to touch on with this introduction about the series is learning that we have an embodied wisdom for life's journey. And the reason I created this season was because for the past 3 years, some of you may know, I've been deeply immersed in writing a book. And the book is going to be on midlife. And consequently, as I've been reading and writing about this, and of course in it myself, there's a huge theme that has come up for me. And the theme is that there is a powerful shift that happens at a certain point in our lives, or at least I hope it will happen, from being defined by what we do to who we are. So let me say it again. There's this huge shift that happens, and I might even call it the shift from doing to being. Let that sink in. We've got to make this shift from being identified primarily by what we do, our accomplishments, to who we are. And that happens when life throws us some curveballs and we learn that we can't control the outer world. What we do or don't do, and the organizing and reorganizing the chess pieces of our lives doesn't always get us the result that we want. So we have to go inward. And so as we go inward and we learn to reevaluate, we say, okay, what has shaped me? What made me this way? And as I've been doing this research, it's become clear to me that the stories that we've lived, they're not just mental constructs up in our brains, but these stories have deeply influenced our physiology. And consequently, our stories have impacted how we feel. They've impacted how we think. They've impacted how we act. So thankfully, as we are navigating this journey of life, I got some good news for you. And the good news is that our bodies have a remarkable capacity to change. And we're going to make a connection this season between our brains and our bodies and how we can rewire them with areas of our lives that we just know need to change. So as I kind of share with you what's coming up here in this season, I want to just give to you a compelling body of research, okay? We won't talk about all this in the episodes, but some of it we will. So what happens in our culture is that we are operating with a subtle, maybe for many of us not so subtle, separation between our mind and our body. It's this rational culture we live in that has been influenced by the Enlightenment. Interesting, the prefrontal cortex, where we make these rational decisions, is a really small part of our brain. The rest of our brain is about emotion and story, and even things that we're unaware that it's controlling, like breathing or digestion as an example. I am going to talk quite a bit in this season about a book by Dr. Bessel Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. If you have not read that, and you're a leader of people or just a person who's trying to figure out how to be a healthier husband, healthy wife, you ought to pick it up. And what Dr. Bessel Kolk illustrates is how trauma and chronic stress, they're not merely psychological events, but trauma and chronic stress actually have to do with the physical imprint that we carry with us in our bodies. And these embodied experiences that we have that are still with us, they are significantly influeing our emotional responses in the world. They're influencing how we think, they're influencing our behavior. And these stories are often operating beneath the surface in our conscious awareness. So we're walking through the world and we're thinking to ourselves, I know what's going on. We see something, we make a choice. We are only consciously aware of the choice we're making oftentimes, but not the unconscious things that drove the choice. And what Kolk helps us see in his book is that our past is what shaped our present choice. If you ever saw This Is Us, I can't remember all the characters, my goodness, but there's one of the main characters in there who's an actor. And in one episode, he gets to do a scene with Sylvester Stallone. And he goes up to Sylvester Stallone and he says, hey, my dad loved your work. And Stallone's like, oh, tell him I said hi. And he's like, well, he's dead. Stallone goes, oh, sorry to hear that. And the actor responds, it was in the past, long time ago. And Stallone says to him something to the effect of, in my experience, there are only two kinds of memories. There's memories that meant something and memories that didn't. And Stallone starts talking about his kids and his past, how he can still remember them in their PJs. And he said, sometimes it's like they're right here with me still. And that's an amazing scene that illustrates that our past meant something. And it is shaping us. And even though it happened 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, it's still happening inside of us. So check out the book, okay? The Body Keeps the Score. Another piece I want to share with you about how our bodies are impacting our world, meaning our daily lives, is something called polyvagal theory. And the researcher who created this theory is Stephen Porges, Dr. Stephen Porges. And what polyvagal theory sheds light on is how our autonomic nervous systems, particularly our vagus nerve, which runs from our head all the way down our bodies, it plays a critical role in regulating our sense of safety and social engagement. So he developed this concept called neuroception. And it's this idea that our bodies are constantly and unconsciously assessing our environment for cues of safety or threat. And these cues inside of us are triggering a physiological shift that is impacting our feelings and our actions, often before our conscious thought even kicks in. Example, I work with leaders in the corporate world. Oftentimes, they are thinking a lot about what's happening in the outside world. And they're not aware that the story that they're telling themselves is like a record on repeat. It's a track. It's an MP3 track, maybe is a better way to say it. It's on repeat in our mind. And it's a story that is still playing in the back of our mind, even though it may not be true in the outside world. We're looking at the outside world through the lens of this soundtrack of our story. And so we've got to understand, what is that story back there? It's driving our decisions. Another item I want to touch on is a word. And it's interesting because so many of us are walking around unaware, and we're wondering, how can we become more aware of our internal world? There's a word for it, and it's called interoception. And interoception is our ability to sense our body's internal states. And if we can learn to sense our body's internal state, it actually can help us process emotions and raise our self-awareness. So here's an example. Research has suggested that our capacity to perceive internal signals like our heartbeat or our breathing or our digestion, if we can learn to get in touch with the physical sensations of our bodies, this is fundamental to recognizing and understanding our emotions. which in turn will influence our thoughts and our behaviors. As an example, right now, I'm realizing as I'm recording this that I'm taking a lot of deep breaths and talking, and I'm not slowing down enough to breathe. Consequently, I'm having a slight ping in my heart. I'll talk about this more in the season, but I learned that that's a habit for me. It's holding my breath, and it came from my story, from some of the chaotic things I witnessed growing up. It's just my habit to hold my breath. And when you hold your breath, you don't get enough oxygen, and your heart needs oxygen to function. When your heart isn't getting oxygen, it will sting. So that's interoception. I'm aware I should stop talking so fast. I should slow down, take some good breaths. And if you can learn to do that, what interoception says is awareness of your body is the first step of having awareness of your emotions and your thoughts and your behaviors. So if you want to become more self-aware, just practice getting up in the morning or throughout your day and just say, what's my body doing right now? How's my stomach? Where are my aches and pains? So you can actually learn emotional health from paying attention to your body. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so here's another item. Another item is we're going to touch this season on this idea of thinking through our bodies. So what I mean by this is that our cognitive processes, they actually aren't isolated only to the brain, but they are intertwined with our physical bodies and even our interactions in the world. And we can learn actually how to shift the way that our minds think and feel by being in touch with our bodies. So an example would be even like a subtle shift in your posture can influence how you feel. So as an example, when I was in high school, I dated a girl whose dad was really tall and he stood up really straight. And when I started hanging out with that family, I noticed that I did not stand up as straight as this girl's dad. And I, through the year when I dated this girl, I noticed I started standing up straighter, and I still do it. I have what's called an erect posture. And what that means is I stand up really straight. I even poke my chest out a little bit. But that change in posture actually impacted how I felt about myself in the world. So you can actually think with your body. So you're like, oh, I want to feel more confident. Well, maybe I should stand more confidently. The way that your body stands will impact how you feel. So we're going to talk about that too. How you can use your body to impact how you think and how you operate. Last piece here, and this comes back to the book that I'm working on. I hope this season will be an invitation to embodiment. I have a lot to say about this. Many of you know that I worked as a pastor for a number of years, and I still am a Jesus follower. But one beef I have with many of my Christian friends is we are doing spiritual bypassing to real experiences that cannot be, quote, fixed, I guess, through telling ourselves Bible texts. If you're not a Christian and you're from another faith, world religion, maybe you have the same problem, I don't know. But it's when we take our sacred texts and we recite them to ourselves as if they're going to fix our entire story. And I don't intend for this to sound sacrilegious. I don't think it is, but quoting yourself a Bible text is not going to fix your story. You've got to do the personal work. And these sacred texts that we have are meant to lift our sights, to help us set direction, help us understand things, but we still have to do our personal work. I think it was C.S. Lewis that said one time that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Doesn't mean our bodies aren't important. It means that our human experience is actually housing right now our eternal spirit, if you can think of it that way. I have an engineer friend who said, when you die, he said, in the way the world works is energy does not go away. It's always around. So we're carrying around this energy in our bodies. And for our time on this earth, this invitation to embodiment is a way of saying, pay attention to what this vessel you're being carried around in is trying to tell you. This body is not just a vehicle that's carrying you around right now. It is an integral part of your being while you're on this earth. And it's holding wisdom, it's holding stories, and it can even offer us a pathway to self-understanding and well-being. Think about it. Your body has got a pathway? Yeah, it does. To understanding and health. There's a researcher I've read. He's great. His name is Jay Stringer. He has a book called Unwanted, and it's about trying to find health in your sexuality. And in his research, he talks about paying attention to your sexual fantasies. He said, because in them is a roadmap to your healing. That's a great book too. And if you read it, what you'll understand is the stories we tell ourselves regularly are pointing us back to something in our past that shaped how we view our sexuality. Point being is, your body has a roadmap in it to pay attention to. So this is an invitation to embodiment. Okay, so I'm done with some of that content. Now what I want to do is I just want to connect you to the main theme of the podcast. So again, we're calling this the wisdom of the body, and we're going to delve into these practical ways to connect to this embodied wisdom. We're going to learn about how our past experiences impact us. We're going to look at the power of movement, somatic practices, body practices for facilitating inner shifts. And we're going to look at the interconnectedness of our physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. And how we embrace the journey of this body will impact who we are. So my co-host for this first season, his name is Dr. Tyler McCurry. Dr. McCurry is a good friend of mine now. He is also my doctor, and he is a doctor of osteopathy. And I chose Dr. McCurry to be my co-host for this season because his work beautifully exemplifies the body's intelligence and its potential to help us heal. We'll listen to it. He has been a life changer for me, my wife, my kids, and I asked him to do the whole season, and he graciously said yes. So I can't wait for you to meet Dr. McCurry. And he's going to share some of the core principles of osteopathy. But the reason for that is to help us find out what are the tangible ways we can begin to utilize to learn to hear our bodies, because it's conveying a message. So that's my co-host. I'm excited for you to be here. So in conclusion, my hope for this third season of How People Grow is to illuminate the profound connection between our physical selves and our inner lives, particularly as we navigate significant transitions in midlife, like what I'm writing about, or maybe even beyond that. And it's by understanding how our stories are embodied and by learning to listen to the wisdom inside of us, that's how we move toward a more integrated, authentic, and ultimately a more fulfilling way of being. So that's my message. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to support this podcast, go over and find us at patreon.com/howpeoplegrow. And you'll see 2 tiers you can support us. One is a monthly discussion you can join in on, and I think that's only $9 a month. And I'm excited. I've started getting a couple of Patreon members, and we're having fun monthly discussions. And the other one is a bit more pricey. It's called Serious Intention. And Serious Intention is a monthly Zoom conversation. It's quarterly coaching. And you get a 24-hour retreat in Tennessee with me once a year. And that's $200 a month. So it's pricey, but you get a lot with it. So thank you for being here. Check out patreon.com/howpeoplegrow if you want to join our little community. And I look forward to you being here for episode 1 with Dr. McCurry. And we're going to be releasing these at 6 a.m. on Tuesday Eastern Time. So until then, we'll see ya. Thanks for being here.